Hello and good morning, Kathryn. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. You've got to tell me where the seed of this book came from because you're telling more than just a story here. You are planting seeds in future conversations. And that's what I love about your writing here.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say. I like to think of it as a beautiful, kind of unexpected garden of strange, unfamiliar flowers that grows up. The seed of the book came about actually from an essay I wrote after my father died, which was an elegy for him because he was a wonderful father. But it was also an exploration of this extremely strange category of loss. I got interested in, well, how is it possible that we put my father, whom I've just lost, into the same category as like our cell phones and our watches and our elections and our minds. Is this a random linguistic coincidence, or is it meaningful that we think of all of these things as lost? And then it kind of became a book when I got interested in the flip side of that, which is this very beautiful experience of discovery. We discover an equally strange and wonderful range of things, from dinosaur fossils to four-leaf clovers to our soulmate.
So true, because it's almost like the soundtrack to our life. And it's like, if you could see this studio, my mother's and my brother's ashes are sitting right here with me. So when you say our lives are shaped and molded by what's no longer with us, if you come in the studio, you're going to go, oh my God, this is exactly what my book is about and the story is about, because you're right.
Yeah, gosh, what a moving image. I mean, now I, of course, am imagining myself not talking just to you, but to your whole family. And of course, that's true. When we meet someone, we meet everyone they've ever loved and everyone they've ever lost in a certain sense. And all of us are so profoundly shaped by both the experience of loss and of love, right? Those are two life experiences where once they happen, everything after that is changed.
So true. Now, one of the things that you put focus on, where I giggled like a child, because the greatest mystery about love is love at first sight. And I'll tell you what, when I first met my present wife, I knew in the moment that she was going to be my wife, and we're 29 years strong.
What a wonderful thing to hear. And also wonderful to hear you say that you giggled. I like to think that this book is kind of consistently funny in ways that I think surprise people who think maybe that they're in for a grief memoir. But yeah, I know, love at first sight. What a mystery, right? I sometimes joke that I'm from a long lineage of love at first sight. My mom asked my dad to marry her on their second date. My father-in-law knew the minute he met his future wife that he was going to marry her. And of course, I met my partner and on a day when I was expecting to do nothing more than have lunch with a stranger and go back to work. And then there I was, just crazy in love.
And isn't it odd how we know exactly how they were wearing their hair, what clothing they were wearing, the color and things like that? Because my wife and I joke around about that a lot, is that I can sit there and describe exactly what she looked like on that particular day.
Yeah, what a beautiful thing, right? I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I can just in a minute put myself back. I was standing on Main Street, literal Main Street of this little Hudson Valley town where I was living, and I could just describe down to the last detail what it was like to look up and see this beautiful, dark-haired, kind of solemn-looking woman walking toward me. And I thought, oh my gosh, wow, that's not where I thought this day was going.
With that essay beginning with a story about your father in a very spiritual writing way, because you know how we creative people are, we pull from the universe. But do you think your father sat down with you and said, you're going to write a book and it's going to be called Lost and Found? I'm right here with you. You will not do this alone.
Gosh, I wish I thought that, and I envy people who do in some ways. Some of this book is about my kind of yearning for that sense of my father's presence after he died, and for whatever reason, I never did have that, and I still haven't. But what I certainly have is my father's influence in all the years that he was alive. And there's no question that I am the writer I am and the thinker I am. And for that matter, like I have the kind of ethics and morals and sense of humor and so forth that I do because he was my father. So in some deep sense, of course, I wrote this book because of him and thanks to him.
The book we're talking about is Lost and Found. And I see every generation picking up this book and reading it in the way that they're gonna think of their own personal families and the journey that they as they grew in age. But I also see the young adults picking this up so that they know what to expect through the changes. It's a different world right now for readers, and they want something.
I think that's true. I mean, obviously, I had no idea when I sat down to write this book that by the time I was done, an entire global pandemic would have descended on all of us, and that we would all be thinking about loss and the strangeness and enormousness of that category, and that we would all be thinking so much about love and gratitude for what we do have, even in the face of those things. But it's very kind of you to say that generations will keep picking it up, and I like to think that this is a book that you can give to someone who's just lost someone they love, but you can also give to someone who's just fallen in love or just gotten engaged or is about to get married.
Well, it inspires the person to look at their own lives through the mirror inside this book in the way that I would pray that they would sit there and they would start taking up journaling or something, just little notes that they're breadcrumbs for their future readers.
Mm. I mean, I certainly hope it does leave readers feeling grateful all over again for their own lives and their families and the people they love. And journaling, yes, but the thing I always tell people is get out your tape recorder
Yep.
and record the people you love. You'll be so glad you did it.
So true. But see, and one of the reasons why I focus on this is because you can craft a sentence here, Kathryn. Oh my God, you're good. You're good at the editing is right there. It's not too long of a sentence. I'm able to digest it. I'm able to jump onto that next page because I made the choice to go to that next page when I should have been in bed.
Well, I hope I didn't keep you up too late at night, but that's very kind of you. Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I find sentences really fun, and I do think part of the job of the writer is to keep readers turning the pages and to give them that little kind of unexpected jolt of pleasure when they get to the end of a sentence or a paragraph or a section, and they have that little kind of bang, and it paid off. It was worth their time. We all could be doing many, many things with our time, and if you're reading my book, I want you to feel like every moment was worth it.
Do you ever sit back and wonder the time that it took to write Lost and Found? We all know as creative people, you're not going to get that time back. That's why we share things forward. Do you sit back and go, okay, this one was worth it. Other books, maybe not so much, but this one, wow.
Well, that's certainly the calculation I did before I wrote it. I am very, very picky about what I'll write about, and it's for exactly the reason you just said. You don't get the time back, and to write a book, you are committing years of your life to it, and a lot of emotion, a lot of work, and so I want to make sure up front, yeah, this is worth it. I know that this is going to feel in the end like all the time and energy and struggle it cost me really, really does pay off. So yeah, with this one, it wasn't a hard calculation. I mean, I'm writing about two of the people I love most in this world, my father and my partner, and I'm also writing about these kind of deep, sweeping facets of experience that are common to all of us. So it felt a little bit like, well, that's daunting, but at least I don't have to worry about like, well, is it worth it?
Well, that's because one of the things I read about you is that you enjoy personal discoveries. It's like an Easter egg every day.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was really fun to write the kind of finding section of this book because finding is really fun, whether that's a trip to the junk store where you, as I once did, you pull a book off of a shelf and it turns out to be a signed first edition of poetry by none other than Langston Hughes, or whatever kind of discovery you might have in your own life. There's a little thrill to that, whether it's at the enormous scale of meeting the person you fall in love with, or some of the other kinds of stories I recount in the book, finding a falling star, finding, great archaeological discoveries.
Yes.
Some of these are truly life-changing and in some cases world-changing, but even when it's just an everyday little discovery, it's why we like to find coins, or four-leaf clovers. It reminds us that the world is full of happy surprises as well as difficult ones.
I love the way you said junk store because down here in the South, they call it antiquing. And I'll walk into an antique store and go, no, this is a junk store. Yeah, it's still a junk store.
Well, I have a real place in my heart for an authentic junk store. No offense to antiques, they're beautiful, and you often do find them in a junk store, but I like a place that kind of wears its identity on its sleeve.
Have you ever found anything unique in a junk store in the way that, because I have a writing desk that I set on my lap that came from 1941, and it had a letter in it from a sailor that used it on one of the ships. Have you found something like that?
Wow, that's a great story. Well, I mean, for sure, the tale I just told of pulling, this slim little book off of a bookshelf and opening it to the front page and seeing that it was, beautifully inscribed and grandly signed by Langston Hughes. I don't think I'll ever do better than that in terms of finding something at a junk store. But the truth is, actually, my house is full of all kinds of things I love, that I got at junk stores. A little blue writing desk that was not on a ship. It does not have some beautiful backstory, but it cost me, $6 or something, and it's totally charming, and I adore it. And there are many things like that in my house.
Does it say a lot about your personality in the way that as you bring words forward, that because I always call it word doodling? What do you call the way that you put your words into place? Because it's got to be thought first, unless you're a stream thinker and it's like just get it out.
Yeah, thought first is a really nice way to say that. I often think that when writing is difficult, it's not because writing is difficult. Making sentences, at least for me, is not the hard part. Writing is relatively easy, but thinking is hard. And if you're stuck, it's often because you haven't figured out what is the core of idea. I'm writing in this moment about, say, what it's like to sit in the hospital while your father's dying, or I'm writing about what your first date was like, and you're really trying to take yourself back away from cliche and away from all of the millions of other things written about love and death, and think, but what's it actually like? And that's about thought, and making the sentence out of it comes afterward, and that's the fun part. That's just finding really precise and interesting words for the thought that you've worked so hard to have.
So in a deep, psychological, creative way, are you saying, dear future reader, I have something that I've experienced. I want to share it with you. Please let me know by sending me a text message sometime.
I think I'm probably saying, dear readers, I have something I experienced that I think will probably feel familiar to you.
Yep.
And I hope that when you read it, you have that moment of real recognition, and you feel like, my job is to put things into words that maybe other people haven't, or not into those precise words. And because of those precise words, it suddenly feels accurate to them, and it gives them language for some of the most meaningful experiences of their lives.
One of the things that I've studied in the way that people write through poetry and or through long-form stories and things like that is that when there is something as tragic as this invasion of Ukraine, writers come from this, not just in Ukraine, but around the world. The creative people of this planet are feeling something, and they're getting it out on paper.
Sure. I mean, I think that if your fundamental orientation in life is to make sense of the world through words, then of course, when you're confronted by these kind of catastrophes, whether it's or not just catastrophes, momentous events, whether it's these very intimate ones I'm writing about in the book, or as you say, Ukraine, or these past couple of years in the pandemic, I think there's a sense of urgency. This is, and also maybe just a sense, for me at least, of almost kind of automaticness. Your orientation is I make sense of the world by writing about it, and right now this is the most pressing thing in the world, and so it's important to sit down and say what I can. And not all of us are in a position to weigh in, meaningfully or helpfully about everything, but all of us have something we can weigh in about that way. And I'm always so grateful when colleagues out there do make sense of something like Ukraine for me with beautiful language and deep and knowledgeable thinking.
The name of the book is Lost and Found. Will there be a follow-up called Found and Lost? Because it seems to be that's our steps in this generation. We find it, but then we lose it.
Well, and hopefully then we find something again.
Yes.
I don't know. Get back to me in a handful of years. But for right now, I'm pleased to have this one out in the world, and I hope readers are pleased by that too.
Oh, they're going to be. And the thing about it is that your readers are going to want a podcast. They're going to want to hear your voice. They're going to want to hear the stories. They want to hear how the rhythm of your vocal tones and things like that, because the way that you write is exactly the way that most of us speak.
Well, if that happens, I'm calling you, because you're a wonderful interviewer and you make it all very easy.
So where can people go to give you some love so we can get this trail going with Lost and Found?
Sure. Well, the book can be found pretty much anywhere books are sold, as they say, although I always encourage people to frequent their local independent bookstore if they can, or bookshop.org, which funnels money to those stores. And in terms of finding me, I have a website, which is just my full name, KathrynSchulz.com, and I am on Twitter at that same name.
So have you, maybe this is a conceited thing for me to say, but that when they've released my books, I'll go into those small local stores. They don't know who I am. I'll go in there and I'll sign a couple of the books and I'll put them back on the shelf. Do you do anything like that? Because that reader's going to go, oh my God.
I think the trick is just to call the store in advance. then they'll know you and they'll have them all set up for you.
Yeah, I love those moments too when you look out over that crowd and it's like, oh, you're here. Hey, whoa, okay,
Yeah, wow.
deal with this, man. This isn't the writing room.
Well, it's wonderful. I'm always so moved that people want to come, talk about books together. What a wonderful thing.
Oh, so true. You got to come back to this show anytime in the future, Kathryn. The door is always going to be open for you.
Well, thank you so much. It's truly been lovely to talk.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you. You as well.
There's one more question, and I'll let you go. You seem to be the long form, I have a writing instrument in my hand type person, or are you a typer?
Oh, I'm absolutely a typer.
Okay.
I wish. I mean, I guess at various stages of the process, if I'm really stumped, I'll get out a legal pad or a piece of paper and typically try to outline that way.
Yeah.
But I admit, by and large, I'm just an absolute slave to my laptop now, like most of us.
But at least you let it free. That's all that counts.
That's true. However it gets out there, however it gets done.
That's right. Have a great day today, okay?
Thank you. You as well.